Whilst it is universally acknowledged that Antonio Conte is one of the best managers in world football, I'm not sure that his debut campaign at Chelsea quite gets the credit that it fully deserves. In his first season at a new club, in a new league, and in a new country, having managed Italy for the past 2 years, Conte took a team that had finished 10th the previous season and was far closer points-wise to getting relegated than they were to the Premier League title, and he won the league with one of the highest points tallies in the entire history of the division. After getting battered 3-0 by Arsenal in only the Blues' 6th game of the season, Conte switched from a back four to his preferred 3-4-3 formation the following week against Hull City. And from that point on, Chelsea went on a quite remarkable run of form until the end of the season that looked like this. Everything just seemed to click into place for Conte and Chelsea following that change of shape, as Victor Moses transformed for a single season into prime Carlos Alberto Torres. But it is Conte's first starting 11 at the Bridge against West Ham United on the opening day of the 2016-17 season, before that system change, that is our focus today. Only 2 Chelsea players from that starting 11 are still at the club, one seemingly certain to leave this summer, and it is quite possible that both will. So, with that in mind, I thought that it would be quite interesting to take a look back at Antonio Conte's first starting 11 as Chelsea boss and see where those players are now. So, I have, and here it is. Thibaut Courtois, Real Madrid. I am frequently wrong and only very occasionally right on this channel, and Thibaut Courtois is a great example of someone who I was very wrong about. At both Chelsea and Atletico Madrid, and indeed with the Belgium national team, it was always evident that Courtois was a good goalkeeper. But I was never quite convinced that he was a truly great one. I thought his replacement at Atletico Madrid, Jan Oblak, was streets ahead of him. I didn't think that Chelsea would have too much trouble replacing him, so long as they didn't go out and sign someone who had hands constructed primarily out of prawn crackers. And I wasn't even convinced that he was all that much of an upgrade on the routinely underrated Keylor Navas at Real Madrid. Following the Belgians' debut campaign in Madrid then, I was feeling somewhat vindicated. But it is now high time for me to hold my hands up and admit that I was badly wrong. Courtois is now firmly among the best goalkeepers on the planet, so much so that not one of his outstanding saves in the Champions League final surprised me. So, Thibaut, and I know that you are watching this since you are renowned for being one of the pettiest people in football and for frequently Google searching your own name, I apologise. You are very good. Courtois was Antonio Conte's number 1 throughout his time at Chelsea, before departing during the same summer as the Italian, following an excellent 2018 World Cup in a £35 million move to Real Madrid. As I mentioned, Courtois endured a difficult debut campaign in the Spanish capital, but he has been excellent for the last 3 seasons, and aged 30, there is no reason why he can't continue to be Real Madrid's number 1 for the next 7 or 8 years. BRANISLAV IVANOVIC, free agent. In my head, before making this video, BRANISLAV IVANOVIC had left Chelsea before Antonio Conte arrived, but as we have already firmly established, my head is most assuredly not to be trusted. In fairness, Ivanovic did leave Chelsea midway through Antonio Conte's debut campaign, joining Zenit St. Petersburg in February 2017. By that stage, the Serbian's legs were just starting to give out on him, but what a tremendous servant to Chelsea Ivanovic really was. It's worth noting that in his first 6 months at Chelsea, despite having arrived for £9 million, Ivanovic didn't play a single minute of football, and he came very close to leaving the Blues before he'd even played a competitive fixture. Thankfully for Chelsea fans, Ivanovic didn't leave during his first summer, and he would go on to become a key man following Carlo Ancelotti's appointment, making 377 appearances for the Blues in total, and very rarely putting in a sub 7 out of 10 performance. Ivanovic most recently played for West Bromwich Albion more than a year ago, now aged 38, meaning that, in all probability, he is now retired, but as always, I will await an official announcement from him rather than retiring a player on their behalf. Gary Cahill, free agent. A brilliant signing by Chelsea back in January 2012 for just £7 million, which all but condemned Bolton Wanderers to relegation that season. Gary Cahill went on to spend 7.5 years at Stamford Bridge, where he made almost 300 appearances. Cahill was a key man for Chelsea in all but his last season at the club, and the 2016-17 season under Antonio Conte was among his very best. Not only did he start 37 of Chelsea's 38 Premier League matches, in which the Blues only conceded 30 goals, and they notably shipped 3 in the solitary game that he missed against Watford, he also chipped in with 8 goals at the other end in all competitions, which is an outstanding output for a centre-back. Cahill joined Crystal Palace in the summer of 2019, where he enjoyed 2 rock-solid seasons when fit, before dropping down into the Championship with Bournemouth last summer. Cahill made 22 appearances in a Bournemouth side that won promotion this season, but he now finds himself out of contract once again, aged 36. The only club I've seen him linked with is Burnley, which I suppose is feasible if he fancies a move back up to the northwest. Maybe Gary Rowett's project at Millwall if he wants to stay down south? Who knows? Time will tell. John Terry, NFT salesman. Arguably Chelsea's greatest player of all time, and certainly their greatest ever captain, John Terry spent 19 years in the Chelsea first team, during which time he made 717 appearances and won 17 trophies, the vast majority of which he won as club captain. The 2016-17 season was Terry's last at Stamford Bridge, and he made just 9 Premier League appearances in Antonio Conte's side, including his last appearance for the club on the final day of the season, when the game was rather bizarrely halted so that Terry could receive a guard of honour in the 26th minute by both Chelsea and an already relegated Sunderland team. JT went on to spend a season at Aston Villa under Steve Bruce, followed by 2.5 years as Dean Smith's assistant. Terry left Villa in July 2021, and he now sells JPEGs to children on the internet which have, at the time of this recording, lost 99% of their value. Cesar Azpilicueta, Chelsea. Whilst BRANISLAV Ivanovic and John Terry would go on to only be bit part players for Chelsea in the 2016-17 season, after Antonio Conte switched to a 3-4-3 formation, the back four that he picked on the opening day of the 2016-17 season was made up entirely of Chelsea legends. Azpilicueta was the youngest and the last of the 4 to arrive, brought in from Marseille for an absolute bargain £7 million in 2012. But he is also one of only 2 players in this 11 that is still at Stamford Bridge. The Spaniard is actually 7th in Chelsea's all-time appearance charts now, sandwiched between Dennis Wise and Petr Cech on 476 appearances. But it seems distinctly possible that, after 9 years at the Bridge, Azpilicueta won't be adding to that tally next season. Although his 1-year contract extension was triggered in April, Azpilicueta has been heavily linked and reportedly has his own heart set upon a move to Barcelona. Nemanja Matic, Roma. A man who follows Jose Mourinho around like financial catastrophes follow Harry Redknapp, Nemanja Matic has linked up with his former boss for a 3rd time this summer, joining Roma after his Manchester United contract expired. I'm going to put it out there that I always thought Nemanja Matic was a little bit overrated, with the exception of the 2014-15 season, in which he was very good. I remember when Chelsea sold Matic to Manchester United for £14 million at the end of Antonio Conte's first season at the club, and then Chelsea lost the opening game of the 2017-18 season, whilst Manchester United made a great start, and loads of pundits started banging on about how foolish Chelsea had been to sell to a rival and how it could decide the title race. Yeah, you didn't hear too much of that over the rest of Matic's 5 years at Old Trafford, during which time Manchester United did not win a single trophy, while Chelsea won 4, including the Champions League. Matic is still only 33, and whilst I maybe have never rated him quite as highly as some, I suspect Serie A may well suit him. N'Golo Kante, Chelsea. The only other player from this starting 11, alongside Cesar Azpilicueta, who is still at Chelsea, N'Golo Kante has also been linked with a summer move away from the bridge with reported interest from Manchester United and PSG last month. Most reports seem to indicate that Chelsea are in no rush to sell the Frenchman and would prefer to tie him down on a new deal. It is easy to understand why that is the case, as despite playing probably his worst football in England today during the second half of last season, when fit and at his best, Kante is among the most effective and decisive players in world football. Without him, there is not a chance in hell that Chelsea would have won the Champions League in 2021, and at the age of 31, you would imagine that there is still plenty to come from him, despite some indifferent performances this season. Willian, Corinthians. Perhaps I am just a contrarian, but completely opposite to Nemanja Matic. Whilst I always see Willian taking pelters from fans of all clubs, there is no doubt that on his day, he was pretty special. Lightning quick, brilliant on the ball, and capable of creating or scoring a goal out of nothing, some of Willian's best performances at Chelsea were absolutely out of this world. Unfortunately, as would become a bit of a meme, it seemed as though a lot of those most vintage of performances were reserved for around the time of contract negotiations and transfer rumours. But Willian still played more than 300 games for Chelsea over the course of 7 seasons at the club, twice winning the club's Players' Player of the Year award. He finally did not get a new contract in the summer of 2020 when he demanded a 3-year deal and Chelsea would only offer him 2. But London rivals Arsenal were willing to give the Brazilian that extra year that he wanted. Following a hat-trick of assists on his Arsenal debut, the world-class pundits recycled the same lines that they had trotted out for Matic a few years earlier. Brilliant player, sold to a direct rival, Chelsea must be out of their minds, etc, etc. I'm not sure Willian had another good game in an Arsenal shirt, and in August 2021, he agreed to terminate his contract. Willian signed for Corinthians on the same day that he left Arsenal, where he has also struggled, and there are strong rumours that he is looking for a new club again this summer. Oscar, Shanghai Port. It is almost 6 years since Oscar left Chelsea, where he played almost every game in a move to Shanghai SIPG of the Chinese Super League. Yet, he is still only 30 years old. Technically and athletically blessed, Oscar was straitjacketed a little by Jose Mourinho, who loved him so much that he even binned off Juan Mata. Oscar's move to China at such a young age saw him receive a fair amount of criticism, but it also saw him become one of the highest paid footballers on the planet. Whilst the Chinese Super League collapsed last season, as I covered in this outstanding documentary that you should definitely all watch, Oscar was one of the league's few high earners that stuck around. Presumably he has some kind of titanium contract, and he is reportedly still the 5th highest paid player in the world. Oscar was linked with a move to Barcelona in January as China's top flight crumbled, and it would be an interesting experiment, if nothing else, to see what kind of effect spending 5 or 6 years of your prime in a vastly inferior league has on a player, before returning to the elite level. I'm not sure that it has ever been tested before to quite the same extent. So, yeah, that would have been interesting, but he didn't. He's still in Shanghai, so there is really nothing interesting to see here. Eden Hazard, Real Madrid. The second player from Antonio Conte's first starting 11 at Chelsea that is now at Real Madrid, whilst Thibaut Courtois has become a much better player than I had ever imagined at the Bernabeu, I'm not sure that anyone could have anticipated that Hazard would struggle to quite the extent that he has done in the Spanish capital. One of the most gifted players of his generation, Eden Hazard can do things with the ball at his feet that very few other footballers can. And Chelsea fans got to experience 7 years of that brilliance at Stamford Bridge. Hazard won the club's Player of the Year award 4 times over the course of those 7 years, racking up more than 350 appearances and becoming one of Chelsea's greatest players of all time. At Real Madrid, on the other hand, who paid an inconceivable amount of money to sign Hazard, he has been plagued by injuries and has scored just 6 goals in 66 games over the course of 3 full seasons. It has been a disaster in short, and it pretty much signalled the end of players close to the age of 30 transferring for £100 million plus fees. Actually, that's not true, is it? Chelsea paid almost £100 million for Lukaku, but I suspect that one really was the final nail in the coffin for those types of deals for players of that age, for the next few years at least. Diego Costa, free agent. Beloved by Chelsea fans, Diego Costa is one of the most irritating people to ever step foot on a football pitch. Unless, of course, he happens to be playing for your team. That was the case for Chelsea fans, hence the deep affection, as Costa fought, clawed, and indeed elbowed the Blues to 2 Premier League titles in the space of only 3 seasons, before making a rather acrimonious exit. I think Costa was particularly adored by Chelsea fans because his physically dominant and all-action performances gave the team a presence up front that they had been desperately lacking since Didier Drogba's departure. And the fact that he was replaced by Alvaro Morata only made those attributes seem even more emphatic. Costa actually turned out to be a dreadful signing by Atletico Madrid when he returned to the Spanish capital for an enormous £57 million, scoring only 19 goals in 81 games for Atletico over the course of the next 3.5 seasons. His return to the club was halted in December 2020 by a mutual contract termination. And since scoring 5 goals in 19 games for Atletico Mineiro between August 2021 and January 2022, Costa, who is now aged 33, has been out of contract. That is it for Antonio Conte's first starting 11 as Chelsea boss, but what about the bench that afternoon? Good question, Alfie. Cheers, mate. Well, as backup to Thibaut Courtois, you had Asmir Begovic, who just signed a contract extension at Everton, where he is Jordan Pickford's number 2. Cesc Fabregas has just come to the end of 4 disappointing seasons at Monaco and is now a free agent. His compatriot, Pedro, made the controversial move from Roma to crosstown rivals Lazio last summer. Ruben Loftus-Cheek is still at Chelsea, but has recently been linked with a move to Serie A. Victor Moses is contracted to Spartak Moscow, but has gone AWOL and didn't report for pre-season training last week. Michy Batshuayi is now under contract at Chelsea still, but is expected to leave the club this summer, and fullback cum wingback Ola Aina has been with Torino since 2019. Oh, and Antonio Conte himself, of course, is now the manager of Tottenham Hotspur, and will be hoping to finish ahead of Chelsea next season. So that is it for today's video, but thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart for watching today's video. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed it. If that was the case, then why not hit the like button? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, of course, for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on social media via the username @HITC Sevens on both Twitter and on Instagram. Cheers.